All right, please welcome our next panel as we talk about building blocks of real-world communities.
We're good. We're not collegiate esports, but we're still cool. Don't worry. Okay, so we are here today to talk about communities, both virtual and IRL. So communities are obviously very important to a lot of these organizations here in this room today. I'm Joni. I'm with Women in Games International, or WIGI. We are sponsoring the Safe Space Room, so if you haven't checked it out, please be sure to check it out. It's just right out the door and to the left. And to start off, I would love to have each of the panelists go ahead and introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Mary. I've worked in gaming for around 15 years, a range of different roles. Work for Belong Gaming Arenas, which is part of Vindex and Esports and Tech Services business, and we're opening locations around the US. We've got 27 locations around the UK. You can probably tell from the accent that's where I started, and we've now got 5 locations open in the US at this point. We're really around building locations with a digital infrastructure just to form a community and network people together.
How's everybody doing? My name is Neil Johnson. I am the Vice President and Managing Director of Gaming and Esports for a company called HPN Global. We are a global site selection and meeting management company that has turned their focus towards gaming and esports to kind of help level up some of the LAN experiences. Prior to that, I represented a number of different destinations and hotel chains. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about will be coming from a perspective of esports, tourism, and hospitality, but I've represented Los Angeles, Las Vegas, here, Washington, DC, and the global hospitality and entertainment company, MGM Resorts, based in Las Vegas.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Pfefferman, Chief Gaming Officer of React Gaming Group. We have a full esports and betting ecosystem that includes Loot.bet, the title sponsor here today, as well as a competitive team, Parabellum, and a tournament platform called Compete.gg, free to play. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it's also a publicly traded company, RGG.V on the venture, so you can check it out. And keep in mind, the whole market's down, right? Okay, so think about that. And that's it. And yeah, one other thing, if you guys, the scooters here in DC are amazing, so just like a little tip from being here a couple days, like drop the Uber, go for the Lime scooter. It makes the experience here so much better. Thank you.
All right. I'm Jared Serfozo, Chief Strategy Officer for AXR Edge, which was formerly Access Replay a couple weeks ago. So we're rebranding there. And AXR Edge is creating experiences, gaming experiences for individuals and companies for some sort of growth. So combining corporate sponsors with individual communities to make those things happen. Prior to that, I worked for a commercial real estate company that focused on tech research parks at universities and also helped them grow those individual companies or communities across the nation.
Very cool. So we have a lot of really different perspectives, a lot of diverse ways that you kind of have been building out your communities as well. And we will have an opportunity for an open Q&A at the end, so consider what you're saying and ask some questions. Esports communities are often formed or united by a love of a certain title. How have gaming communities evolved over time, and what is your personal experience within these communities? Anybody can take it.
Yeah. I can kick off. So I think gaming communities really have always existed in some form. I think from the very beginning there's always been a social aspect to gaming, whether you've had your friends turn up and watch you play, whether they bring their Xbox consoles, their CRTs, and set up a mini LAN in the house, and even down to trading Pokemon on Game Boy, which was a horrific experience, but people still went out to do it as part of a kind of social experience around gaming. So I think it's always been there. There's always been communities in some form. LANs have been around for a very long time. Obviously today there's far more of a online angle to it, and people connecting via the different methods that they do, but there's still a real kind of place for the physical gaming experiences and meetings and events to take place and happen. There's still a lot of demand for that, and certainly in Belong we're all about bringing those social experiences into local venues for people to come and play together.
I think from a hospitality and tourism standpoint, I think gaming communities have kind of changed in that they're more mature. They kind of know exactly kind of what they want. I think when they're coming to events, I think they understand that the gameplay, the competition is going to take care of itself. The professionals are going to kind of whittle it down, and kind of the competition is going to be, be great. But I think they're looking for more unique experiences, more touch points, more community, more opportunities to kind of have memorable takeaways. And one of the examples that we tried to really kind of focus on that is up to about 2 months ago, I was representing Washington DC, Events DC. I was part of the group that worked with Sam to bring this event to Washington DC. And one of the things that I really wanted to do was give you guys a feel, a flair for what DC had to offer. So one of the things that we kind of checked in along with Sam and Destination DC and Cultural Tourism DC is that we have over 190 embassies here, second most to England and Britain, the UK. And so that is what kind of birthed the embassy tour that everybody kind of participated in and kind of took advantage of, and just kind of really walking everybody through that experience. Half of us went to, each of us in quarters went to 3 different embassies and kind of have a really good experience. And then we also wanted to have you in a historic building like this, the National Press Club, where a lot of prominent speakers have been, to really kind of give you a feel. If Sam and these guys are taking this show on the road to Singapore and Dubai and stuff like that, we really wanted to give you a feel for Washington DC. And so I think that's what people are kind of looking for in terms of being more demanding, in terms of their experiences, and more mature in terms of what they're looking for.
No, it's great answers from both of you guys. I guess I kind of want to just maybe walk it back a little bit, maybe define the terms a bit. So I really think there's sort of 3 elements that really make up any community. And let's kind of define that first and then maybe dive deeper into gaming communities. So I think at the very surface level, it's passion. If you're in the Smash community, you're in this community because you love the game. But that's not really enough to form a community. I like pizza. I don't really identify as like being part of the pizza community, right? It's something I like, but it doesn't really go any deeper. Then I guess kind of the second level might be in terms of friendship and camaraderie. So you'll be part of a group because maybe your friends are involved in it, or you're going to meet other people in it. You're doing for that sort of social purpose. And I think the third element is really what keeps community strong. And sorry, just a tangent. Also want to ask you guys, how do you keep a community together is another really good question, because I think building communities is easy, keeping them is even harder. But anyway, I think the third reason, it really comes down to sort of purpose and belonging, something that's a little bit more meaningful, and that's why you're going to be part of a community, you're going to be involved and stay in it if there's that higher purpose or sense of belonging. So I think those are the key elements for any community, and then I'll let you guys kind of talk more about sort of how that applies to gaming and then also for real-world communities.
Yeah, I'll add, the evolution. I was thinking, back my first experiences. I think I was on some random forum. I was really young, should not have been on this forum for Duke Nukem, and with dial-up internet. And I remember trying to figure out how I wanted to play this game with somebody in a different state so bad. So I gave this complete stranger, who knows how old he was, my parents' phone number, and he dialed in at a very specific time, and it worked. And there's a guy running across the screen, and like that's virtual, right? Like that's cool. That's a cool connection. But that memory sticks in my mind, and kind of going along what you said earlier is these communities need to be able to form some sort of memories each time in order to continue to grow. Fortunately, as far as the evolution of these communities in esports and gaming, social media, of course, has helped that a lot and allowed opportunities for like-minded people to group up and discuss things with each other. And we see that now very specifically with each game, right? So not only, are you a gamer? Yes, but honestly, we just use that as a kind of a marketing tool to get people like in, but which game, right? So people define themselves as either, I'm Rocket League, I'm a Rocket League professional or amateur, or, I'm really into League or anything like that. So I'd like to kind of figure out how we can support all of these different communities that happen, and is it worth it to make sure that there's always some sort of, cross promotion there in between the individual communities?
I think I like to kind of jump on where you were talking about, Ben, in terms of how do you keep a community together? Because here in DC, we weren't a mature destination. We are an emerging destination that's trying to get that big boy status, if you will. And so, when you're representing a destination, DC, Maryland, Virginia, you're looking, your community is a number of different people. It could be high school, it could be collegiate, it can be the community at large that's sitting in front of us right now. So we took the approach of just continue to give them touch points, to continue to give them different offerings. So what we looked at is like, what do we have as a destination that we can build off of and continue to throw things out there? So one of the things that we did is we partnered, and as a destination, we sponsored our local esports professionals. We sponsored Wizards District Gaming, our DC NBA 2K two-time defending champion. We sponsored them. We sponsored our Overwatch team, the Washington Justice. We sponsored NRG, the org that's in Los Angeles, you know, because we wanted to be one of the first destinations to sponsor a team. So we sponsored on a professional level. We're also kind of reaching out on an amateur level and kind of checking. A lot of the military branches are based here in DC, Department of Defense, stuff like that. So we are actively trying to work on, and we're still trying to get things across the finish line with the USO and the US Navy and stuff like that. So we're kind of working on an amateur level. Then how can we sit down here and operate on a collegiate level? In the DMV, you have 250 colleges and universities here. So together with a local land center out of Rockville, Maryland, we formed in March of 2021 the Mid-Atlantic Collegiate Esports Conference. That's 16 colleges and universities specific to the DMV area. Shenandoah University, Mount St. Mary's, stuff like that, competing in 4 titles, and just continued to go down the line to have different touch points to begin to have this community, begin to keep them together, have multiple touch points. And so that's what we were trying to do as an emerging destination.
Yeah, and I think that's really a good example of how the kind of reason for bringing the communities together matters so much, whether that is online, whether it's in physical locations, because the reality is if you have to have the moments and the reasons for a community to keep coming together, to have shared experiences. That means they're going to continue to interact and strengthen the connections rather than breaking apart, because there isn't enough momentum to keep them together.
Absolutely, and Jared and I were talking earlier about, I also grew up with not great internet, and so LAN parties and internet cafes were like how I could game. So we had a really great community while we were gaming, we had a really great community while we were there, but then what is that thing that keeps you coming back? I don't talk to any of those people anymore because we all grew up and got our own internet, right? So how do you create that thing that keeps everybody coming back to want to be part of your community?
Yeah, so you're talking about the problem from staying virtual and then keeping them coming back in person? Is that what you're saying?
Sure.
Well, right now, so we throw events at our location in Atlanta, and in order to get people there, especially now, post-COVID, it's quite hard. So, you know, you're fighting for people's time. That's it. That's the most valuable thing. So, you know, oh, I got this thing. Oh, please come play games, right? And they're like, well, you know, I can do that later. It's always something else. So we see that obviously alcohol and cash works right now. However, what we'd rather do is actually, we'd like to support communities that already exist, that we see a very strong leadership team in there already. Partner with them, give them the venue, give them the platform, and then we'll just tell the story. That benefits our company, saying like how we partnered with this great organization, and then we would like to make the connection between some of those cash dollars from corporate sponsors or anything like that, and say, hey, we'll go ahead. We're kind of like a venture fund for communities, I guess, but put that money into this organization, and then you'll see a good return on your investment with that community. And a lot of that's, you know, either for them, this is getting monetary, sorry, but you know, they're looking for talent, right? And we're always saying like gaming communities have some of the most talented people, and you want them around you. I went a little bit all over the place, but yeah, I think partnering with existing communities that show strong leadership is number one, and then of course you can always fall back on alcohol and cash to at least get them to the door, and then hopefully there's something there worthwhile to where they come back.
Yeah, I'll add another ingredient, and that's really comes down to kind of like knowing your audience and knowing your community. I did promise these guys in the pre-show that I'd bring up something controversial, so maybe this is a good time to bring in a good case study of know your audience. Right now, the Rainbow Six Major is happening in Charlotte, but maybe you didn't know that originally it was going to happen in Dubai. And what happened was Ubisoft makes this announcement, we're going to do the big major in Dubai, and it's a whole shit show, and everyone's upset. There's petitions, like major backlash. And I think that's a great example of not knowing your community. And on one hand, the LGBTQ community was saying we don't feel comfortable, given Dubai's human rights records and things like that. And yeah, not to get into all the details, we can talk about it in the Q&A. And everyone agreed. And at the same time, now you have a community that's, let's say, in Dubai or in the Middle East, and a lot of people in the Arab and Muslim communities are saying, well, you just screwed us over, thanks a lot. Now we look embarrassed that, we can't get esports events. And Ubisoft becomes the loser. And I think everyone's a loser when you have a community that's so strong and you don't have the proper messaging, and it all falls apart. And I think if they would have just announced, we're going to Dubai, listen, we don't endorse all the laws of any one country, but we want to grow esports in the Middle East, it would have been a different story. So however you run your community, knowing them is so critically important, and the messaging that you present is what's going to make or break that community.
I agree.
So I think that brings up a really great point too in toxicity, and toxicity is so prevalent specifically within gaming and gaming communities. And like you said, kind of taking that stance that we don't agree with it, but we want to still grow within a specific geographic area. What do you do within your communities to kind of negate toxicity or address it or make it go away?
Yeah, I think toxicity is obviously a big issue in esports and in gaming, and the reality is obviously with the growth of online and social, there's more, people can feel a little bit more anonymous, but I think there's a huge amount of work going on from across the industry, whether it's publishers, whether it's teams, whether it's tournament operators, to look at how to deal with and fix some of the issues. The gaming world is far more diverse as well in terms of players. There's a lot of different games, there's a lot of different gaming communities in there with lots of mix of people who are part of those. So there's a lot of diversity, and increasingly diversity in the industry as well in terms of recruitment and who's being hired, and at senior and at junior roles it's increasing and getting better across the board. So I think there's a lot going on to better the situation. Definitely not there yet, but I think it's moving in the right direction. From Belong's point of view, we work very closely with our arena teams to make sure that the guidelines that we've put in place are followed. We will enforce and act if we need to, if someone goes against the guidelines that we've set out. Our Discords, we moderate and have the arena teams really carefully manage their community to make sure that everything that happens is appropriate. And we work with partners as well who are experts in the field. So I think one of my first calls when I came into the US was with the Game Hairs, who are here today, and they've been a great partner to us in thinking about how do we work with that kind of organisation to better our own business and our understanding, and then what we offer to the communities as well.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think, and that's a great topic to discuss, I always feel that people it's so easy to point the finger and say, it's up to the game publishers to do a better job. It's up to it's not. It's up to everyone here. The only way to get rid of it is we all have to stand up and say something when we see it. And it's a collective responsibility. And I can't stand when people just pass the blame off and say, Riot should do more to stop it in the game. No, that's not the solution, because they'll find another way to spread that type of vitriol. So I experienced it. Yeah, I'll admit I play Fortnite. I'm kind of embarrassed about it, but I do. And it happened that I was in a squad match, and one kid is hurling homophobic slurs, and another adult is hurling racial slurs. And this is a teachable moment. And I muted each one. I spoke to them individually and said this is not okay. And I reported them because they should still be banned. But anytime, you see that, this is your chance to stand up, and you shouldn't say it's someone else's responsibility to deal with it.
I agree with you 100% on that. I mean, as a destination, there's so many different levels of community and constituencies and partners, that you have to kind of be aware of. And I think you just have to call a spade a spade. I don't think we can sit down here and kind of hide behind things. I think, and it's not just gaming. I mean, that toxicity is everywhere. Every social media, everything that you jump on, Twitter fingers are out there, and if you're not in front of somebody, you lose that humanity. And I think we just have to be very bold and aggressive when we kind of confront people. I think you can tell anybody what they need to hear, but I think you can do it in a way that's respectful, but a way that lets people know, like, hey, I am drawing the line right here, and that really isn't tolerated. I'm not going to condemn you or criticize you, but just I'm not going to stand for that, and I think we have to be very forceful when we say that.
Yeah, and to add on that, with esports, it's still very young, right, of a career, and there's not a lot of guidance for that right now. So with traditional sports, we have coaches, it's in the schools, they're being guided in some way, and I was talking to the Esports Coaching Academy guys here, and that's their main mission, is to get in there and kind of guide these young players on how they should be acting, right? So a lot of people will say, parents will, they're playing the game, and there's nobody sort of guiding them how to play that game or how to act and how to respond to people. And that's sort of a level of communication that's just not being looked at enough right now, and especially since it's so accessible by anybody. So in order to, keep it, not toxic, it is up to us all individually, as well as, supporting these organizations and coaching. And we see it with colleges now have an insane buy-in from their universities to create these esports rooms and whole venues, and now there's leagues specifically for colleges, and I think that all helps with how to act appropriate, be a good teammate, and then not be sore loser, and all those sort of old teachings needs to get translated over to esports faster.
I love that, yeah. I have a 15-year-old who's an avid gamer, and kind of similar to Ben, there was a lot of things being thrown around, and another gamer actually stepped up and very calmly, very politely told them to stop. And it was really powerful, and it was something my son still talks about on how it was handled and how it was dealt with. And he's actually used a lot of the similar language to change people's perspective within another game as this starts. So I think that representation, creating that representation, is so huge, and it's changing the future, and it's shaping the future for sure. So what are you working on right now to kind of continue to shape the future within each of your organizations when it comes to your communities? It's a good question. You're welcome.
So again, we're partnering with local organizations. We just did an event with 100 Girls of Code, and giving them opportunities to speak to leaders, local leaders, high-res studios and different gaming studios in Atlanta, to show them that they have opportunities to join in, first of all, and then I guess just supporting all these individual groups and allowing them to use the venue, use the platform, and get them connected with some sort of mentorship that would help them grow and be on the right path.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you got to just let them do what they want to do and support them. I mean, what's nice about sort of like the esports and gaming community is, these communities can't be bought. This has to be earned. And the people who are running tournaments and events, they've earned that respect of their communities. It's tremendously valuable. And all you can do is, whether you're a venue, whether you're a tournament organizer, is support, provide best practices. And I think this is great that we're all here together to discuss ideas. We've learned a lot as tournament organizers and venues in terms of how to deal with everything, how to deal with minors, how to deal with, and even from a legal perspective. Now, when we run Smash tournaments, anyone under 16 has to get a parent signed. Things like that, proper procedures have been put in place based on other people's experiences that we probably wouldn't have thought to do anyway. So, yeah, I think those are sort of the main ingredients to support it.
Yeah, from our point of view, we're working a lot with existing communities, so organisers at a local level who are putting on community events and tournaments. We're acting as a venue partner to those. We're working on our own programming and how do we offer a kind of network where local communities can play against each other nationally, as well as competing together locally. Also looking at non-competition and how can we upskill players to be better and offer career opportunities as well. So I think there's a lot that can be done, and it sounds like there's a lot of people doing a lot of different elements to get their communities cemented and growing. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunity out there to keep developing, and a lot of networking, I think, to share best practice across all of the industry. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I will say there are really bad and toxic communities that do approach us, and we have to say it's a weird conversation. Like, I'm sorry, no, let me show you this Twitter thing that you did.
Name names.
Yeah,
name
no.
names.
It's like, we can't, like, that's not with what we want to promote. And that will continue to happen, and that's fine. And what you're saying is just say no and have that explanation ready for why. So if you have either a venue or your own organization that's valuable, they'll understand you want to protect that value. And it's kind of nice if they do kind of get a little bit more mad. That means that you have something really valuable. So, yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so we're going to open it up for questions for about 5 minutes. Does anybody have a question?
Hi, how important do you feel moderators and community managers are when it comes to maintaining healthy online communities?
Extremely. Yeah, so actually, again, the conversation with Esports Coaching Academy last night got me thinking about, these moderators of these online communities, they need coaches as well. I think there's not, I don't know of any resources right now of like, where can I learn to be a moderator right now the best way? I'm sure they probably do exist, but why not, as a fan, you go from a fan usually, and then you're in the Discord or whatever app that you're using to communicate, and then, now I'm a trusted member and I get a badge. I get some sort of notification, right? But how much better would it be if I was certified, something like that, to where there'd be a little bit more trust, and then as these communities grow, the moderator thing ends up being a problem often. It's just usually they don't know how to act. So like they've never had either that important position before, and they don't know the repercussions. So I think that discussion needs to happen more with moderators, and I'd like to see some sort of educational part to that.
It's the hardest job in the world. I mean, it's a thankless job. In many ways, it's a lose-lose. You're never going to make everyone happy, and I think at the end of the day, it really just comes down to you just have to be on the pulse of what the majority of the community, supports and what they don't support, and you're going to have to be bold sometimes and make decisions and ban people or things like that. I don't know, go with your gut and stay true to your values, and hopefully people support you, and sometimes even if they don't, maybe it's the right decision that you made that was the unpopular one. But I think it comes down to knowing your community and maybe really, in addition to that, like understanding the real terms of service and guidelines of the event tournament community.
Yeah, that's really well said. I think being consistent is definitely one of the biggest things we've seen, for sure. Does anybody else have another question?
Hi, you mentioned earlier about there's no resources for moderation. Are there resources or data that you can use to help build your communities?
Data. So there are resources. is more on the marketing side, but we see it to build these communities. It's Lightstream. They have another product, I forget what it's called, but they have a ton of data that you can use to kind of build these communities. So with my last job with commercial real estate, we would go into a different city, know nothing about it, and we would spend weeks to a month researching that community, the existing community, and then just start collecting data. So we've used databases and stuff like that before, but in order to grow that community, existing data, I don't know of a resource besides just starting to collect it yourself.
Let me bring in an example that's a little bit similar, but maybe we could draw on the same thing. So when someone gets banned on Twitch, why do people get pissed off? What's the general criticism of that? Why? Yeah, or they'll always draw comparisons. It's not consistent to this.
Right.
This person threw a cat and got 2 days. This person said this word and got 5 days. And people will always, their criticism of Twitch is just, it's not consistent. These are the words you can't say on stream, and if you say them, it's a 7-day ban. And if someone does it, we all agree that, look, by being on Twitch, you agree to the terms of service, everyone has to acknowledge the rules, and if you don't, then this is the ban. And as long as you're consistent, it's okay. And I think for a moderator, it's the same thing. If you're not consistent with rulings with certain people, and you allow this comment here, and this person says, yeah, you're totally gonna get criticized. So those two ingredients, consistency and making sure that everyone is clear with the TOS is the only way I think you can make it happen.
So specifically growing communities, that's what you wanted? Okay. Are you talking about virtual or in real life? Either one? Either one. Okay. All right. So I'll throw this out there as a strategy that we use. We'll want to bring more people to a certain community group. So we'll throw an event that's local, and we'll put 2 other sort of opportunities to join that event, even though I'm not interested in the main one. So it's similar to like if you go to a esports competition. I'm there just to watch Rocket League. I don't know anything about Valorant. That's okay, but maybe I'll catch a little bit of it, and then maybe I'll be part of that community. So same sort of thought there. So we try to throw events that's gaming based, so we get the gamers in, and we also want to have a panel like this, so that they can learn something. One that helps our story, say, oh, you came, you learned, great, so come back for the next one. And then the third one is to offer some sort of entertainment. So last year, we were doing virtual concerts. It was mostly virtual, but with a very small amount of people in the venue, to where it was all just local artists. And actually, they started flying in, and it was sponsored by iHeartRadio. They were supporting some of the cash prize for that. So we had basically music industry, corporate industry, and then gaming. And then all of those people kind of gather around the same time, and they end up sort of all growing at the same time. So that's one of the strategies that we've used that has had really good results. And we're, of course, tracking all that data to see, did they show up again? And then, oh, well, okay, this person, well, why are they showing up again? But I don't have any outside resources that we use. We're just a bunch of Excel right now.
You can look at Twitch trends, and obviously it doesn't tell you the health of the gaming community necessarily, but it does give you an indication of what games are popular at that given time. And looking at Discords for most games, if not all games, will have a Discord server that somebody has set up. And once again, you can start to understand a little bit about how the community are interacting, what they're excited about, just by looking into those Discords in a bit more detail. So those are the 2, not necessarily data as such, but areas that are quite interesting to look at, to see trends.
Great. All right, so we have about 5 minutes left, so I just want to throw it to the panelists. If you could give any last words of advice on community building or community engagement, or just anything that you feel is important.
2 things for me, probably. Think about the diversity of your own business and your organisation, and how you can make sure you've got a range of different voices in the room, and also how you're acting with the gamers that you're interacting with in the gaming communities, and make sure that you put the right guidelines in place and you act on them if and when you need to. And secondly, I think don't be afraid to try, but make sure you listen and make sure you understand why you're going to try something before you do it. Those would be mine.
I would say Dan had talked about earlier about knowing your audience, and I would even say knowing yourself and knowing, what you bring to the table. And I say that in terms of like another destination that I represented, Las Vegas. We were 2015, 16, how do we get into space? Do we just sponsor a team? We've got the money. Do we do this, do that? And we were kind of like, what's our wheelhouse? What are we good at? And it was live events. And so we were also like, what do we bring to the table? We bring an opportunity to elevate the experience. In a lot of LAN events, it was a competition, and it was a lobby bar where the event was at, and that was your gaming experience from a LAN perspective. And we're like, we bring shops, restaurants, dining, entertainment. We can really kind of fill out this experience, this 360 experience in addition to the gaming. So let's just focus on live events. Let's really let the market know what we can do in that 360 degree experience and kind of stay that way. So that's kind of how we did our product offering in Las Vegas, and it worked out. We host EVO every year, the Fighting Game Championships. We hosted DreamHack Masters, which was a CSGO. We gutted a nightclub, brought in a HyperX Esports arena, had Ninja come there and play everybody, NBA 2K, tournament to turn, and Vegas has really kind of, propped itself up as a destination in this space, and it was because what are we good at? We're good at the lights, camera, action, the show, the sizzle. This is Vegas, sell it, bring it here, and it needs to be bigger and better than any place in the country. And so know yourself and know what you bring to the table.
Yeah. I like your point to build on that. I think it comes down to kind of like big tent, making sure there's something for everyone. I was at the Miami Grand Prix 2 weeks ago. I watched, and I'm not a F1 guy, I watched like 5 minutes of racing and then 4 hours of like walking around and checking the whole thing. So that was big tent. Like they got non-F1 fans in and to have a great time. I always think about, this came up one of the earlier sessions, like Overwatch is a hard game to follow, right? I can't just, go with my mom and watch Overwatch and have a beer with her. She's like not going to get it. And I've always said that's why I don't think esports should be at the Olympics. That's for another session. But I think, if you have something for everyone, people will try new things and they'll meet new people from different communities. And so if you can package that in a way that's still very cool, fun, and authentic, that's the way to really grow and support and build new communities.
Yeah, similar. That's what I was saying. Wanted to talk about is that you have assumptions for when you throw these events, right? Oh, well, the attendees are going to do this, right? And they're going to go through and they're going to game and they're going to be super engaged. And that's my advice is like, well, check that assumption. There's no way that everybody's going to be a part of that. So how can we engage with them in a different way? And each individual attendee should be thought about. It's hard. It's hard to do. So making sure that each sort of event that you throw has opportunities, multiple opportunities to engage with that event, to create some sort of memory, going back to something that you said earlier. You're just creating experiences to create memories, and those memories will end up growing those communities because they'll come back.
I love that. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and thank you for being here and for all of your questions.